It's time for the Prete Is On with Dave Prete here on 92.1 The Team, WCKR Hornell. Here's Dave Prete.
Welcome, everyone, to the Prete Is On 92.1 The Team. And this is Dave Prete, your host. I am doing my civic duty and broadcasting remotely in order to help avoid the spread of the coronavirus. We are now into week number 2 of what I call the coronavirus lockdown. And as of the time of this broadcast, the United States now with almost 100,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus, the most in the world. New York State, of course, with the most in the United States. A couple more confirmed cases here locally this past week. So it's really starting to hit everybody, and in a lot of different ways. Obviously, from a health perspective, financially, as a lot of people, not only here locally, but across the country, have been laid off or lost their jobs because of the coronavirus and all the business shutdowns. Socially, most people that are non-essential workers are having to work from home. So it's taken its toll on a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And it seems, by listening to President Trump, that it's going to at least go on for a couple more weeks, the shutdown or the lockdown. But hopefully we're making some progress and people can get back to their lives as normal or as normal as possible here in the near future. It's also taking its toll on the sports world, from local sports and youth sports all the way up to high school, college, and even professional sports. Major League Baseball was supposed to start its season and have opening day this past Thursday, and of course that's been pushed back. Nobody really knows if or when MLB season is going to start. Hopefully it does, as I'm a big, huge baseball fan, as most of you know who know me. So not having opening day this week was a killer for me. So hopefully the sports scene also will, things will begin to open up and we'll be able to go back to sports as we know it. Now, it's also affecting sports entertainment, and specifically the WrestleMania. So for all you wrestling fans, WrestleMania is scheduled for next weekend, April 4th, or actually is scheduled for next Sunday, April 5th. The WWE has decided, however, to make it a 2-night event, April 4th, which is Saturday, and April 5th, Sunday, at their training center in Florida in front of 0 fans. So it went from a huge event that's like the Super Bowl of professional wrestling every year to be held at Raymond James Stadium, home of my beloved Tampa Bay Buccaneers, by the way, in front of 60 or 70,000 people, to an empty stadium and now a 2-night event. And I have here with me by phone, calling from Florida, a friend of mine, a friend of the station, and a friend of Hornell, because he's actually been here on a few different occasions, most recently 2 years ago, when he was here to speak with some veterans at the VA Center, and then march on the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which we didn't have this year due to the coronavirus. I want to welcome, by phone, the genius, Leaping Lanny Poffo, WWE, WWF legend. Lanny, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Prete. That was an excellent introduction.
Thanks, Lanny. And you've been on my show before when I did it a few years back, and we had a great conversation about kind of your experience with wrestling, some of the things that you saw. And of course, people don't know you, Lanny. You are the real life brother of the late and great Macho Man Randy Savage, who passed away.
It'll be 9 years this year in May 20th.
Okay, 9 years. My apologies. So, Lanny is a former professional wrestler, a former performer in both the WWF and then later became known as the WWE. You know what a big event WrestleMania is. I mean, it is, as I mentioned earlier, it's the Super Bowl of professional wrestling. And it's a moneymaker for Vince McMahon and his company. So let's start first with what kind of effect financially and from a viewer standpoint is moving WrestleMania to an empty stadium and now having it 2 nights. What's it going to be like? Like, walk me through, from a wrestler standpoint, what it's going to be like.
Okay, I'm going to tell you the good news and the bad news, okay? The bad news is the atmosphere is going to suck because there's no fans. And if it wasn't for the fans, our sport would not exist. On the good side, can you imagine the audacity of hope that brings all those wrestlers to a 2-day event with no fans, and yet the whole world will be watching because they are starved for entertainment? I think it's a great idea, and I think that the talent will rise to the top.
Now, you'd mentioned, that people are starved for entertainment, which they are. Right now, I can only watch so many Impractical Joker reruns, and I love that show, by the way, but it gets to a point where I want to watch something different. I will be tuning into WrestleMania because I am a professional wrestling fan. Do you think, though, that there is a chance that it might turn some viewers off because of the lack of, let's call it the lack of entertainment value that the crowd brings to WWE shows?
You might lose a few customers, but you'll gain so many. Because I know Vince McMahon, he turned a negative into a positive. And there's no way he's not going to do something for WrestleMania. Now, Tokyo had a good idea. They're moving their Olympics 1 year forward. And they can do that. And hopefully in 1 year things will be better. But you know what I was thinking when you were saying that the United States just became #1 in coronavirus? There's a good reason for that. We test a lot more than the other countries do. And the more you test, the more you find.
That's a great point, Lanny. I never thought about that. But we also have that ability to test more, and we're more forward-thinking and proactive, I think, than some of the other countries with their testing. So basically what you're saying then in other terms is you think there probably is more cases in those other countries. You're just not being diagnosed.
Well, there's more cases in the United States than we know about, too. But we are diligently and we are doing all the testing, and we're going to find a lot of coronavirus, where a lot of countries, they're walking around like they don't know they have it, and they're not going to be tested. So I'm just saying it's another way to look at it.
Now, you're in Florida. You're in Largo, Florida, which is on the west coast near Tampa, correct?
I used to live in Largo, but when my mother died on June the 3rd, 2017, I moved to Clearwater, Florida, so I could be walking distance to Crunch Fitness and walking distance to Whole Foods.
Okay. That makes sense because you're a very physically fit man, still in good shape, and probably could still get in the ring. In fact, we'll talk about that a little bit later. You recently were kind of in the ring. But living in Clearwater, I know that from following the Buccaneers and some of the Tampa media reports, there are people that are mainly younger people that are spring breaking on the beaches of Clearwater. So my question is, why are the beaches still open, and what is wrong with these people?
Well, the beaches are now closed. And what's wrong with these people? They are damned fools. Okay, and I just I saw some of them interviewed. Hey, we don't care. We're just going to do, dude.
Yeah, and I think there's a population of people, Lenny, that just don't get it, or they don't want to get it, and more things are more important to them right now.
I don't get it. I don't get them, And when people say, "Oh, you write poetry," do you ever do rap? And I said, "No. If I see rap on the sidewalk, I walk around it."
So I'm glad you brought that up. So one of your as a professional wrestler and as a performer in the WWE and WWF, you were called the Poet Laureate when you first came up, the Poet Laureate, Leaping Lanny Poffo. Then you later in your career, you became the villainous, the genius, Lanny Poffo. But your gimmick or your character, whichever word is more appropriate, you did poetry and you wrote your own poetry. You would often read it to the audience. At one point, you threw frisbees out that had the poem of the night on it. And it was a really cool thing. And I like to tell the story that when I went to Rochester, New York, which is right up the road, then it was the War Memorial, now Blue Cross Arena, when you guys were there in the 80s, and I was a teenager or preteen going to watch you. I caught one of your frisbees and had you autograph it. And here we are years later, and you and I are pretty good acquaintances. So just a cool story there. But do you still write poetry? You still write your own? I know you've published some books. What are you doing now in your career post-wrestling?
Well, I tell you what, I was supposed to go to Germany 2 weeks ago, and that's when they had a lockdown. And that date has been moved to November. And I'm also going to Liverpool, England, the home of the Beatles, and that's been moved to October 31st, which is Halloween. And my plan, I've got friends in England, and they were going to pick me up and take me to Swindon, and then we were going to fulfill one of my bucket list dreams. I was going to Norway to visit the fjords, which is, if you don't know what a fjord is, it's where the iceberg or glacier has gone through the mountain, and it's a beautiful, beautiful body of water. Go on YouTube and look at the fjord, that's Fjords of Norway. And so I didn't get to do either, but they have moved the date forward for me, and hopefully I'm going to be able to cross those off of my bucket list. I am 65 years old. I am not middle-aged. I don't know anybody who's 130.
I don't either. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna try to turn that one into a positive for you. I don't either. But you're still in very good shape. You're still very healthy. You're still very active. You're still very active in the wrestling community, which is awesome because, you know, a lot of times when guys retire, we just kind of see them fall off the face of the earth, or sometimes they'll come back and, you know, try to revive their glory days. We've seen that with, you know, guys like Hulk Hogan, the NWO, where they'll get in the ring and they'll have some matches. And it's don't get me wrong, it's a momentous occasion and nostalgic for fans to see that, but it's not like seeing the real thing that was, 20 years ago. You were recently on AEW, and we are talking with Leaping Lanny Poffo, the genius Lanny Poffo, who's on our show by phone in Florida. But you were recently on AEW. Help me out with the name of it. It's All Elite Wrestling, correct?
Let me see if I can remember. AEW means All Elite and never admitting defeat. There's not one imposter on this wrestling roster. Now Stanford is feeling the heat.
I love it. And Stanford, the reference there for people who aren't aware is where the WWE headquarters are. And it is the prime or the main competition for the WWE right now. Not still quite at the level that the WWE is at. However, it is the organization was founded and organized and now run by a couple of ex-professional wrestlers who once wrestled in the WWE. They do have some big names on there, Chris Jericho being one of them. What was your role recently when you were on AEW? I know you were on within the past couple of months. What did you do when you were on the show?
All I had to do was go with handsome Jimmy Valiant And the Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, the brother of Brian Christopher, that is deceased. David Brown, who was teamed with Lance Russell as the announcers. These guys have Memphis roots. And before I went to WWE, I was in Memphis for a couple of years, tag team with my brother. And I was there to honor my brother and my father. And, it really meant a lot to me to see the wrestlers and the fans and then see the new talent that is just busting their butts trying to entertain you.
Now, we all know the legend of your brother, the Macho Man Randy Savage, or Randy Poffo, his real-life name. Your father, though, Angelo Poffo, also was a legend and had set the record for the most push-ups at one time? 669, was it?
The most sit-ups, 6,033. And he was featured on Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Oh, I was way off. 6,000, not 600. That's an amazing feat.
Let me see if I can remember the poem that I recited. He actually died 10 years ago, March 4th, 2010. And here we are, March 2020. So it's been a little over 10 years that my father passed. And I think if I can remember the poem, my dad was in the Navy, as history will tell. As he was bleeding through the mat, a world record fell. He did 6,000 sit-ups with an extra 33 to glorify our Savior who died on Calvary. And Robert Ripley's speecher celebrated this event, giving credence to success is not an accident. That's always been his motto through times both good and bad. He's a real Hall of Famer and the world's greatest dad.
Lanny, that's awesome. And that's just some of the poetry that you do, and it's just amazing every time I hear it, because I feel like you could take any situation, any scenario, any person, and I could say, Lanny, can you do a poem for this? And within minutes, you got one rattled off, and that's truly amazing. It's such a great talent to have, and to be able to share that with your fans and with the listeners is just awesome. Now, I have two more questions for you before I let you go. And again, we're talking to Lanny Poffo, former WWF, WWE legend. So, number one, what's it like to work for Vince McMahon?
I wrestled for 21 years. 8 years were with Vince McMahon. It was very demanding, but very rewarding. And wrestling's been very good to me. And I have to say that I wouldn't have gotten into the wrestling business if my father hadn't opened the door. And I wouldn't have gotten into the WWF, WWE if my brother hadn't opened the door. And I wouldn't have been 4 months into main events if Hulk Hogan hadn't opened the door for me. So may I say, God bless all three of them. And I am one of those guys. Everybody I meet in wrestling gave more than they got. I got more than I gave. And I'm very humble, very seriously appreciative for everything, whether it seemed like a blessing at a time, it sure seems like a blessing now. For example, I am divorced. I'm a one-time loser, but I've got a beautiful daughter and 2 magnificent grandsons. So it makes it all worthwhile. And at the age of 65, in 15 years, I will be 80, hopefully. And I will hope and pray that the coronavirus is obliterated or at least kept manageable. And I wish everybody in the sound of my voice would be appreciative and just feel the gratitude that comes from being alive.
Lenny, that's awesome. That's great words of wisdom and a great attitude that you have. The final question I have before we go to kind of rewind back a little bit to this year's WrestleMania, Roman Reigns, who is one of the top stars of the WWE right now, was scheduled to take on Bill Goldberg. Everybody, I'm sure, knows who Goldberg is, for the WWE Championship. And due to the coronavirus concerns, Roman Reigns has been told he cannot wrestle. So what happens in a case where you have a main event like that scheduled, something like that happens? How easy or how hard is it to call an audible and come up with plan B on such short notice?
Well, we have to look at the big picture. Roman Reigns is a leukemia survivor. And
yes.
Coronavirus might just wipe him out. And that's more important than WrestleMania. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, so whatever they come up with a replacement, it'll be good. And the fans have to realize that some things are more important than entertainment. Some things are very, very real. And the main thing is he has to take precaution. And we all have seen, what happens when things go awry. Owen Hart is one example of an accident that happened. And you know what? I hate to say it, there's no do-overs. So it's better to be smart than not smart.
Yep, I agree 100%. I do think it'll still be a good show, despite the fact they'll have no fans in attendance. Vince always, he's a gamer. He puts on a good show no matter what the situation, and it should be very interesting. And Lanny, I appreciate every minute and every moment you've given us. It's always great to hear from you. We'll try to have you back on the show later in the year. Stay safe and stay healthy down in Florida. And once again, it was a pleasure, and thanks for joining us.
Can I just give one more poem, and I want to dedicate it to you because of our friendship?
Absolutely, I would love that.
Okay, I didn't write this. I don't know who did, but I don't think plagiarism is a joke. So I'm gonna
okay.
I'm gonna say I didn't write this, but this is about our friendship. I've searched for the definition of a little word called friend and looked all through my dictionary where the F's begin and end. I agree with Noah Webster and all that he has to say, but this is how I'd put it, if ever I had my way. A friend is a God-given blessing, as rare as a precious stone, who loves you, not for your riches, but just for yourself alone. He's the one who shares in your laughter and in sadness spurs you on. He's the guy who'd stick like plaster when the rest have turned and gone. He'll give you faith when it's lacking and the courage to forge ahead and the reason to go on living when sometimes you wish you were dead. Your acquaintances may be many as your near life's journeys end, but oh, it's a paltry number who could stand the test of a friend. And since I have no gold to give, it's love alone must make amends. And all I ask is while I live, God, make me worthy of my friends.
Lanny, that's awesome, and I love the part about the riches because I ain't got none of those. So I'm glad you threw that part in there as well. That's a great poem. Thank you for dedicating that. And again, it's wonderful to talk to you. It's great to be your friend. We hope Hornell community hopes to see you again soon because we love when you come up here. A lot of people and a lot of fans look forward to it. We'll have to try to get you back up here in the next year or two, maybe for St. Patrick's Day again. And again, you stay safe and stay healthy down in Florida, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Okay, and Dave, let me just say that you have riches beyond compare because you have friends and a beautiful family, and that's more important than anything that jingles.
God bless you, Lanny. Thank you very much.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll be back. That was the genius, Leaping Lanny Poffo, former WWF, WWE superstar, real-life brother of the Macho Man, Randy Savage. And we will be back after this break with Canisteo Greenwood Athletic Director Chris Kohler.
This local sports show here on 92.1 The Team is brought to you in part by Rhonda Wilsey. Spring is here. Now's the time to buy or sell your home. When choosing a local real estate agent, choose someone with 2 decades of experience. Rhonda Wilsey has been helping people like you find their new home for over 18 years. Call Rhonda Wilsey at 607-382-4539 or email Rhonda at rhondawilsey@howardhanna.com.
Do you lead an active lifestyle? Are you trying to reach that next level in your fitness or active lifestyle? Stop into Next Level Wellness in Hornell. Next Level Wellness offers CBD options that help promote muscle recovery and regrowth. Their CBD products are the perfect addition to pre- and post-workouts. CBD helps reduce inflammation, allowing you to recover faster from workouts. If you're ready to step up your training or take your game to the next level, then stop into Next Level Wellness or shop online at nxlevelwellness.com. Next Level Wellness, 10 Seneca Street, Hornell, or call 607-385-3188 for more info.
Thanks for listening to Dave Prete here on 92.1 The Team. Dave's show is brought to you by great sponsors like the Spotlight Theater of Hornell, 607-661-4695 to get the lineup of great movies. That's 661-4695 to get the list of movies showing at the Spotlight Theater in Hornell.
Back here on the Prete Is On 92.1 The Team. It's your host, Dave Prete, and we are back and have on the line with us the Canisteo Greenwood School District Athletic Director, Chris Kohler. Chris, just like myself, you're playing your part by social distancing, and you called in to our show tonight, so we appreciate that. We're all trying to be safe and, healthy, so let's start with the state of athletics, not only at Canisteo Greenwood, but with all the local high school sports programs. Obviously, no sports being played with the kids not in school and with schools closed down. What effect is that having on the sports programs, but also on the individual athletes?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. It's it's kind of like anything else with our jobs, and a lot of people are just wondering, when are we going to get back to normal? And the tough thing is we don't have an answer for these kids. We know that Governor Cuomo has told us, the earliest we can get back is April 15th. Section 5 has set an anticipated start date of April 14th. We know that, NISA is going to reassess on April 27th. But, like I said, there's a lot of what ifs, and we don't know if we're even going to have a season. We're hopeful that we can, but we're just taking it one day at a time at this point.
Now, what if school does reconvene on April 14th, or whatever the mandated target date is that the governor's looking at?
15th. Yep.
15th. What happens with the sports programs? Because by now, the athletes are already into their season. Most of the sports have already started playing games, definitely practicing. None of that has been possible for obvious reasons. What happens if on April 15th, you go back to school? Do you just kind of pick up and start playing games? Do you have a practice period? Or is it too late at that point to even get started with the spring sports in the best case scenario?
Right, yeah, it's tough. Our JV and varsity sports were about a week in, so they'd gone Monday through Friday right before we'd closed. So they got 5 days in, and, with the exception of baseball, the new requirement number is now 6, so we'd have to get at least one more day. I don't think they were going to be willing to waive that rule, and baseball has to get 10, so they would have to get some additional days of practice in, but I think right now the focus would be, if we do get back, is to have at least a condensed regular season. Probably eliminate some of the non-conference games on our schedule. Looking at something like a baseball or softball, who right now has 20 games scheduled. It's just not doable to be able to come back and play that many games in such a short period of time. So I think the goal would be to have a shortened regular season and hopefully get to a sectional tournament. I know New York State has said right now that their main goal, their focus is to at least provide that for kids, and it's not likely that there'll be a state tournament. They do want to give kids an opportunity to have at least a regular season and, be able to do things like a senior night and just have that for the kids. So that's what we're hopeful for, and that's the goal at this point.
And, speaking of the seniors, it's got to be so heartbreaking for that group of seniors who, this is their final sports season of their high school careers. You could look at the NCAA basketball players and say the same thing. Those who were gearing up to play, in the March Madness and weren't able to do that because the tournament was canceled. What is there any type of, I guess, consolation you could give to these athletes who, were looking forward to that final sports season and may not get to play it now?
Right. Yeah. No, it's tough. And like, you mentioned, kids are obviously disappointed. Who else is disappointed is the coaches too, who have worked and prepared to get things ready and who have put a lot of time in the off season, just like the kids have. Because there's so much uncertainty, the best these kids can do is just stay ready. And it makes it tough because they can't get together in groups, obviously, to do workouts and things like that. But anything that they can do on their own, we've just encouraged them to, just stay ready, because if we can go back on the 15th, we're going to be ready to go. But there's just so many uncertainties, so we just don't know. But like I said, we're hopeful that Section 5 and NISFA are going to figure something out and at least allow us to have a season. And if we can just do that, then I think everybody will be happy.
Even if it's an abbreviated season, it's still better than no season at all.
Right, absolutely, yep.
I got the final question before I let you go, Chris, and thank you for joining us. This is Chris Kohler, the Canisteo Greenwood Athletic Director. So how does the cancellation of a sports season affect the funding you receive from the district that you play in?
Right, yeah. So, right now we don't know if our coaches, will be paid. We don't know if the tournaments that we're in or the meets for track and things like that, if we're going to be able to attend, and obviously we have to pay for those. So we just don't know. And I know there's a lot of question marks around the budget that we're going to have for next year, and what we'll be able to purchase, obviously, because of this situation that we're in, and we just don't know. So we're taking it one day at a time and just waiting for answers and just staying hopeful, I guess.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you, and we're all very thankful for the positive attitude. I am a resident of the Canisteo Greenwood School District. My kids attend school. They also play sports, so I know as far as the sports part goes, they're really bummed. I'm not sure about the school part. Probably not. Yeah. They don't want to go back. Right. Hopefully they do.
Right. Yeah.
But we really do appreciate the positive attitude. Stay positive, stay safe, stay healthy, and let's hope and pray and cross our fingers that we can salvage some kind of sports season here in the spring, even if it's an abbreviated season.
Yes, absolutely, for sure.
And thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for your time. You do a fantastic job at Canisteo Greenwood as the athletic director. We'll catch up with you again soon, hopefully with some good news later on here in the spring after a sports season has taken place. So that we're hopeful. Let's hope that that's the case. And we'll be back for our final segment with Hornell native, and I'm going to call it part 2 because he was on our show last week, with Bill Dugan coming up next.
Lomax Pro Wrench Tire and Auto Center and Body Shop are open for business 6 days a week during this corona crisis. Come to Lomax for new tire sales and major and minor repairs. Get the best fast oil change in Hornell for only $19.95. Lomax has served the Hornell area for 50 years and will continue to serve the motoring public with great values on cars and trucks. Their Pro Wrench Body Shop manager, Chris Doran, will handle your auto body work quickly and compile all insurance claims completely. Thank you from everyone at Lomax, 193 Seneca Street, Hornell. Phone 324-4440. 324-4440 for Lomax Pro Wrench Tire and Auto Center and Body Shop.
At Indeed, we understand that when it comes to hiring, it's important to have a large talent pool to choose from. But sometimes too many good options can be overwhelming. That's why Indeed doesn't just give you access to a large pool of job seekers. We also offer screener tools that let you instantly narrow down your search. Hone in on hiring with Indeed. Experience Indeed for yourself today and get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/promo. Terms and conditions apply.
At O'Reilly Auto Parts, we'll help make your auto repair, maintenance, and restoration projects easier. So when your car isn't stopping like it used to, our professional parts people will help you find the brake parts and supplies you need to do the job right the first time. Now, for a limited time, get 15% off a set of Brake Best pads and 2 rotors. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Railhead Brewery on Park Drive in Hornell is open for takeout today, noon to 7 p.m. After you place an order, pull right up outside Railhead on Park Drive in Hornell, and a Railhead employee will bring your favorite pizza or beer right out to your vehicle. Railhead, they're accepting orders right till 7 p.m. Call ahead 324-3286. Order online, railheadbrewing.com.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-368-5184. 800-368-5184. 800-368-5184. That's 800-368-5184.
Back here on the Prete Is On 92.1 The Team. Due to some technical difficulties that we're having, Bill Dugan is not able to join us this week. We will get Bill on next week and talk about the NFL collective bargaining agreement and some of the other things going on with the in the NFL. Of course, Bill, a Hornell native, former offensive lineman for the Seattle Seahawks, the Penn State Nittany Lions, also played a couple of years in the USFL, friend of the show. So regretfully, we cannot get Bill on tonight. So what I'm going to do instead, in honor of what was supposed to be opening day of Major League Baseball this week, which was Thursday, and of course the MLB season has been pushed back because of the COVID-19 restrictions and mandates of everything being shut down, I want to do my MLB preview in honor of opening day that wasn't. And honestly, I don't think between now and the time when they do have opening day, which nobody at this point knows when that's going to be, I want to do my preview because I don't think things are going to change all that much. I think most of the teams were already set with their personnel and their rosters to get ready to go into the season before everything shut down. So I'm going to do a quick division-by-division overview and give my predictions for the division winners, the playoff teams, the World Series teams, and the World Series champion. You might be surprised who I pick. May or may not be the New York Yankees. So let's start in the National League in the East. As a Mets fan, I was so excited for the season to start. So excited, like I am every spring, until something happens to the Mets. And it just happened this week. Noah Syndergaard was diagnosed with arm issues, and it came out later that day that Tommy John surgery is needed for Noah Syndergaard, who, behind Jacob deGrom, was the Mets' second-best pitcher. He was a very important part of the Mets' rotation, of the Mets' team, of really them having any kind of chance this year to win that division. Is it the end of the world for the Mets? No, but it's definitely a punch in the gut. And I'm not sure that the Mets now are going to be able to recover from that, barring some kind of trade to get another starter into that rotation. So let's start in the NL East. The clear-cut favorites, in my opinion, is not the defending champion Washington Nationals. Instead, it's the Atlanta Braves. The Braves, who, in my opinion, should have made the World Series last year, were beaten in the playoffs. They're a young team. So they didn't have a lot of experience last year in the postseason with some of their players. They did have a couple veterans on their team. One of their main veterans, Josh Donaldson, has gone and signed with the Minnesota Twins. But I really like the depth in the rotation, the young rotation of the Atlanta Braves. I love Ronald Acuna Jr., the center fielder. I think, in the next couple of years he's going to be in the talk, maybe not as the best player in baseball, but certainly in the conversation. I think the Braves win the NL East. I think the Nationals are going to be the second place team, despite losing Anthony Rendon, their all-star and MVP caliber third baseman. They still have Steven Strasburg. They still have Max Scherzer, the two aces in that rotation. And I see that the Nationals finishing second. The Mets third. Again, I even before the Syndergaard injury, I'm not sure that the Mets were the favorite to win that division. Definitely not now. The other punch in the gut as a Mets fan is there was supposed to be new ownership in place, and of course that didn't happen. Steve Cohen, who had put a bid in to buy the team, it fell through. So us Mets fans are still stuck with the Wilpons owning the team. That's not a good thing because the Wilpons are, to be totally honest, provide poor management, poor ownership, and as a Mets fan, it's going to be a third-place finish. Now, a wild card's not out of the question. Division title definitely is. And then the Phillies fourth and the Marlins fifth. Marlins way far off, competitively speaking, to the rest of the National League East. However, that may change in the next few years. They have a lot of young guys in that system coming up. So that's the NL East. Let's go to the NL Central, where I really like the Cincinnati Reds. I like some of the moves that the Reds made. They bring in Trevor Bauer last year, midseason. Bauer, an ace of the staff. They've got a lot of young talent. I don't think the Reds are going to win the division, but I really, really would not be surprised if they did. I am going to go reluctantly with the Chicago Cubs to win the NL Central. And there's really not a clear-cut favorite in this division. The Cubbies, though, they have the experience. I know that they've made some moves to cut salary, but they still have a great core group of guys. A lot of those guys were on the 2016 World Series team. I think they do lack a little bit in their rotation. Their bullpen's not great, but it's not a strong division. I see the Cubs barely winning the NL Central. Right behind them, the St. Louis Cardinals. I think the Cardinals also have a lot of great young talent on that team. Of course, Paul Goldschmidt, the MVP caliber first baseman. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals second. I'm going to go with the Reds third in the division. And again, the Reds, to me, at this point, look like they could at least be a wild card contender. The Brewers fourth, and I know some people like to have the Brewers higher on their list. I'm just not buying the Brewers. I don't like their pitching staff. They don't have an ace. Their ace, the ace of their staff, probably would be a number 3 or 4 on most other teams. And I'm just not buying the Brewers. And the Pirates, I'm going to say, unfortunately, because I do like the Pirates, and I love going down to the stadium. If you've never been to PNC Park, it's beautiful. Please make a trip down. You won't regret it. But unfortunately, the Pirates are going to finish in the basement of the NL Central. Let's go to the NL West, where I have the clear-cut favorite, and if they don't win the division, then it would be very unexpected, very surprising. Maybe one of the upsets of the century in professional baseball. That's the LA Dodgers. who I think are the most stacked team in Major League Baseball, maybe even more so than the New York Yankees. I love the Dodgers from top to bottom. I love their chances. They of course, Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, a great 1-2 punch. Their bullpen was shaky a little bit at the end of the season last year, but still a very solid bullpen. Their lineup from top to bottom, I just don't see anybody in that division even coming close to the Dodgers. The second place team, the Arizona Diamondbacks, do have a chance, I would say, as a wild card team. Diamondbacks have a good lineup with Ketel Marte, their second baseman, Eduardo Escobar, their third baseman. Again, they're kind of lacking that ace of the staff. They did get Madison Bumgarner in the offseason, but you're talking about a 34 or 35-year-old Madison Bumgarner, not a 24-year-old one from 10 years ago who was chasing Cy Young awards. So I'm going to go with the Diamondbacks second, the Padres third. Of course, Manny Machado on the Padres. They have good young talent in Fernando Tatis. Still need some more pitching, though, I believe. Their bullpen is lights out. The Rockies, I'm going to go number 4, and the San Francisco Giants, who are in rebuilding mode, number 5. So my division winners, I have the Braves in the NL East. I have the Cubs in the Central. And I have the LA Dodgers in the NL West. The 2 wildcard teams, now they're talking about possibly expanding the number of teams who make the playoffs, adding an extra or wildcard spot or 2 based on when they start the season, just to make it more exciting and give more teams a chance that maybe would have had that chance earlier in the year if they would have played games. So I'm going to go right now with just the regular 2 wildcard teams, and I'm going to go with the Nationals and the Diamondbacks to make the wild card. So the Nationals and the Diamondbacks are my 2 wildcard teams in the NL. Now, moving to the AL East, Yankees, clear-cut favorite in the East. Much like the Dodgers, they're stacked from top to bottom. I know they lost Severino to an injury. He won't be their starter. He won't be their opening day starter, the ace of their staff. That's okay. They have Garrett Cole. Actually, Garrett Cole's the ace of their staff. Severino, they lost, was their number 2. So they're not going to have their number 2. They have Tanaka still. They have James Paxton. I don't see anybody in the NL East beating the Yankees for the division. Now, I know the Rays always are right there with their small payroll, with their their unknown talent, and I do see the Rays possibly challenging the Yankees for the division, but at the end of the day, Yankees are just too strong. I see the Rays finishing second, the Red Sox third, the Blue Jays fourth, and the lowly Orioles fifth. And if I was an Orioles fan, I think you thought being a Mets fan was bad. I would not want to be an Orioles fan. Worst team in baseball by far. NL Central. Really, it's going to come down, in my opinion, to 2 teams, Chicago White Sox and the Minnesota Twins. The Indians are usually in the talk for division title. Indians going through some retooling, traded Corey Kluber in the offseason. Trevor Bauer was traded at in the middle of the season last year to the Reds. So I just don't see the Indians being that team that can compete for the division title right now. So I'm going to say in the NL Central, it's going to be the Minnesota Twins, followed closely by the Chicago White Sox, who made some good offseason moves. Third will be the Indians, fourth the Detroit Tigers, and fifth the Kansas City Royals, who are back in rebuild mode. Nothing unusual for them, as that's usually the case 8 years out of 10 with the Royals, except, of course, the year that they beat the Mets in the World Series, and they weren't rebuilding that year. So in the AL West, the Oakland A's are my favorite to win the division. I love the A's. I love the way that they do their Moneyball. If you've never seen that movie, you should. Every year, this team is competitive, whether they make the playoffs or not. They're always right there. They don't spend a lot of money, but they always have quality players. I have them winning the AL West, followed, of course, by the Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon-led Anaheim Angels or California Angels. I do love the Angels lineup. I don't really like the fact that they don't have a quality pitching staff, and I think that that's what's going to prevent them from winning the division. The third place team in the AL West will be the Seattle Mariners. I'm sorry, the Houston Astros. Yes, I'm having the Astros third because with all of the cheating scandal, I really think it's going to take the toll on the team mentally as well as physically, because honestly, I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be throwing at them, sliding a little harder when they go into second base to break up a double play, and just a mental toll, and the fact that they lost their ace, Garrett Cole. I had the Astros finishing third in the AL West. And then, of course, rounding off that division, the Seattle Mariners and the Texas Rangers. I'm going to go with the Rangers finishing fourth and the Mariners finishing fifth. So my division winners are the AL East Yankees, AL Central Twins, AL West. I have the Oakland A's. My wild card teams are both going to actually come out of the AL West. I have winning the wild card spots, and again, two, if there's more, there's a possibility of having more based on what Major League Baseball decides to do. I have winning the two wild cards, the Anaheim Angels and the Houston Astros. So I think the Astros do still make it into the playoffs, but as a wild card team this year. So my pick for the World Series is going to be the Los Angeles Dodgers, because I do believe that they are the most well-rounded team in Major League Baseball, versus, I could go chalk here and say New York Yankees, but I'm actually going to go with the Minnesota Twins. I love their lineup. I think, if they have a chance to bring in some more pitching, they're going to. They're going to pull an upset in the playoffs over the Yankees. So I'm going to go Dodgers versus Twins in the World Series, the Dodgers being crowned the Major League Baseball World Series champion in what is going to be an abbreviated season. So that's my MLB preview for you guys. Hopefully we get some baseball sooner rather than later. That's also my show for this week. Thank you for listening to the Prete Is On 92.1 The Team. We'll be back next Saturday at 9 a.m. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you to all of our first responders, including our doctors, our nurses, firefighters, police officers, all those who make us safe. Without you guys, we couldn't do it. Have a good day.